Hi, guys.
Word or phrase on a web. Hello, hello. And it was
Good evening, Inspector. Thank you so much for joining us.
And anybody hear me out there?
Yes, we hear you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, can hear you.
I so often have glitches trying to figure this thing out that, oh, Carl gives me a big thumbs up. Thank you, sir. Awesome.
Hey, Barden, how you doing?
Hello, Indy. How are you? For some reason, I don't have anybody's pictures up except mine. Well, not critical. Oh, there's Sean. Yeah. Now I feel like I'm in a room full of people again. Good. This works for me.
Congratulations, Carl. This is Gail.
Thank you very much, Gail. I assume you were not talking about the sports report.
Correct assumption.
Got you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Congratulations from me as well, Carl. I'm very happy that they voted you in. I think that's you're a great person for that position.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate that too. Thank you so much.
So Carl, can you now like push forward our initiative on a sports and weather committee?
So I will respectfully say no comment, just because.
Him.
Yeah.
He and I
Precisely.
talked about this months ago.
Oh, I'm
Months
so
We
not
did.
surprised.
We did. Barden, you know what it is. Sean knows this. I'm a dangerous man because I see time and space differently. And so, you know, in another universe, we do have a sports and weather committee, and it's a riot.
I am
It's
so
right.
disappointed I haven't attended yet. I can't wait.
In another universe, the bylaws have been amended and we are high flying, but this is not that universe.
And we have CB14 t-shirts. Let's not forget that. Steve
Oh
Cohen's
yeah, there's merch.
to
There's
the mayhem.
tote bags. I mean, Barden, you got to think outside the box. There's tote bags, there's onesies, there's bibs, there's stroller covers,
Start
there's
them out
dog
early, I say.
sweaters.
Yeah.
Hey,
start
man,
them
I'm
out
telling
early.
you. Hey, the merch is it.
Barden, maybe we could do that. Maybe we could get that started.
I'm all for supporting it. Let's just squeeze some more bucks out of the budget to fund our stuff. Merch. Thank you. Merch, to use the vernacular.
Yes, Carl,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Hey, Andy and Barty, you know what we could do, like Sean told us, because the system that the city is making the district managers use to pick things from the drop down, just ask them to add a 15th line item that's either miscellaneous / merch. Right?
Sounds good. Good idea.
Sean's trying
man.
not to giggle.
Yeah, you saw that too, right?
Oh,
You
there,
saw
you
that
got
too.
her. You got her.
I'm dangerous. I told you guys I'm dangerous.
So I believe Hindi, you wanted to start everything off. When do we do that, Sean?
Are we ready or we're waiting for more people?
That's what I meant to say. Thank you for clarifying.
I don't know. Do you want to wait a few more minutes for a few more people? What do you think?
We are live streaming and we are now recording. I believe you have most committee members here.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're so privileged to have Inspector Cipriano here to report what's happening in the community and how it's being handled by the precinct. Thank you so much for the extra protection that you've been providing us in these troubled times. And once Inspector has given his report, we'll open the floor for questions.
Hi, good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Inspector Bruce Soprano. I'm the commanding officer of the 70 Precinct. I'll give you a quick crime breakdown. For the year so far, we're down 11% in overall crime, 7 major crimes, and 4.5% for the 2-year period. We're pretty much down in every crime category. Thankfully, robbery, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and stolen vehicles. We're also down 40% in, 16.7% in shooting incidents this year, as well as 28% over 2 years, 9% over 5 years, and an astounding 89% over a 30-year period. My officers are out there. We're conducting a lot of quality of life enforcement. The 70 gets a lot of complaints for 301s, noise, parking. Everything under the sun. We get called under. Obviously we're not perfect, but we do our absolute best. If you look at the numbers citywide, I think we're number 2 in the whole city in quality of life engagement. So I think the officers here, they can do better, but they do a really good job responding to community complaints. Now, just to get to the elephant in the room, obviously we're all aware of the conflicts overseas. It obviously has a real-time effect here in Brooklyn, New York. The 70 Precinct, we have over 150 synagogues, 20 yeshivas, approximately 30 churches, 11 mosques. So the past 2.5 weeks, we've been patrolling all of these religious institutions to the best of our ability. This way, everybody could live, work, and travel to and from work to school peacefully and free from any type of hatred or anything like that. But I'll be here to address any questions or concerns on this board or from the community. I'll be here for that. Before you ask any questions, I have my community affairs officer here, Detective Newsy. He just wants to make a few announcements regarding some community events that are coming up.
Hi, everybody. You guys can hear me?
Absolutely.
Hi.
Good to see everybody again.
Yep, we can hear you.
Thank you. I was told to talk about Saturday Night Lights. So that's a youth event that's happening once a week. Every precinct has that. You can register at the location. Our location is the YMCA on Flatbush, 1401 Flatbush. There's 2 groups. 5 to 7 p.m. is the 11 to 14-year-olds. The second group is 7 to 9. That's 15 to 18. If you have anyone in that category, you can go to the location, get a registration form, and sign up there. That's run by the New York City Department of Youth. And we have our YCOs and NCOs go there to basically monitor and help out and play with the kids as well. We have the Explorers program, which is signed up again through the precinct. That's all, one of our YCOs. That's also Wallace or any of the YCOs. That's for my 13 to 6-year-olds, and they pretty much meet as much as also Wallace, and the schedules allow. So it is a weekly thing, but it's based off their availability. Colbert Park, if some of you guys noticed over the summer, we again have our YCOs go into Colbert Park. That is the Maze Initiative, handled strictly by the YCOs and NCOs. They play basic basketball or any kind of sports inside of Colbert Park. That is once a week during the summertime only, inside Colbert Park from a designated time. I believe it was 5 o'clock to 7. Sometimes a little shorter, depending on how many kids we get out there. Anyone can call. You call the community affairs hotline if you want. I think that just show up day of. There's no need to register, so we'll try to put that information out before the summer hits, so the community board, community council, any kids in the neighborhood can come down and show up. That's once a week on Wednesdays during the summer only. I was told about the Breaking Bread. I don't know if you guys knew about it. We had a small one in the precinct, but the mayor had a big one citywide, more or less. The mayor showed up. It was I forgot what part of Brooklyn we were there, but that was a citywide one where we all basically have to sit down with people that we normally don't engage with. So we had a smaller one on the same version, basically bringing in all our different cultures, our different religions, sit down and mingle. We had a smaller version, very successful, very quick, but we're trying to go forward with a community meeting that would have a tentative date regards to, as the CEO said, about the conflict going on. We just want to make sure our people from the community are safe and well and learn, we'll live with each other despite what's going on. We're going to have a tentative date for November 2nd, 6:30 across the street at the precinct. That's going to be a little bit bigger. So it's going to be basically open to a lot of community leaders and religious leaders. And that's it. So Breaking Bread is the Maze one. That's a yearly one. We're having a small version in regards to the conflict. Coburn Park is the youth. Explorers is the youth. And Saturday night is the youth. I know I'm talking fast, but if anyone's interested with the kids or anybody going on, give us a call and I get the YCOs or, the Explorer supervisor to call you guys back. So anyone that is interested that has the kids in those age groups, give us a holler. I know we don't put it out there, but when the summer comes, we'll broadcast it on Twitter. So once you start seeing something, remember the timetable. I'll give you guys something in email so you can at least spread it forward to any people, any residents in the community. Okay. So some of the stuff is dying down. It's done for now, except for the Saturday night lights. But that's a nice thing. I went there once and I was like, might have to get there again too, play a little b-ball. Me and Sean are gonna go one-on-one, but I'm gonna dunk on her. So on that note, God bless.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, so, I'm here for any questions regarding, anything regarding crime or, coverage for, at the houses of worship, moving forward, but thank you.
Carl?
Thank you, Hindi. Thank you, Inspector Sapriano. Sorry, I mispronounced your name. My question is, so thanks for the recap with the latest crime stats. My question is, with some of the stuff that you mentioned, are you also seeing a drop in, I guess, reports of mail fraud or something like that? Because what I remember is for a few presentations, right, you were letting us know that you were hearing reports of people's mailboxes being attacked, and there was a concern, from Dwayne and other people as well, like the chance of elderly also being affected. So I'm wondering if some of those decreases you're seeing, if mail fraud is part of that as well, or if that's another category.
No. So that falls on the granulosity. The beginning of this year, we were getting crushed as a precinct, even as a borough, even a city, with mailbox phishing. People would be, they were mailing checks. Sophisticated crews from throughout the city, they were somehow fishing the mail out, washing the check, and changing the dollar amount and then using it, and people were getting defrauded out of a lot of money. Since the beginning of this year, I want to say we're in October now. Since the beginning of the summer, I haven't seen one of those in the last few months, to be quite honest with you. So it has declined dramatically, to answer that question.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's funny, Carl, you mentioned that, and I noticed I was actually at the post office just off Church in Flatbush, and the whole lip of it was covered with glue, which is how they do most of the fishing, I gather. Is that correct, Inspector? Because they used to use the little glue traps, and now it's just absolutely covered, and your mail actually will stick in the lip so that somebody, could come by later and possibly fish that out. But that's right in front of the post office, which shocked me.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, a couple of years ago, they were using one method, and then beginning of this year, they were using a different method. I mean, these men and women, I guess, they're sophisticated and they always come up with some type of scheme. But thankfully and luckily through community awareness and crime prevention tips and people making it known, it has decreased. Thankfully.
Thanks very much. Indy, go ahead.
William Hatter had his hands up.
Yes, thank you. Inspector, I appreciate the update on the stats in terms of active crimes happening. As I understand, there are larger nationwide trends downward, which is good. I'm curious, do you have any data, any stats on closure rates for major crimes in the community? And specifically regarding, the Middle East issues, have there been any specific threats locally or in New York City regarding this, synagogues, mosques, etc.?
So to answer the second point, obviously of your question, there's no specific threats at all that I'm aware of, or the NYPD is aware of any synagogues, mosques at this time. If there was, I'm pretty sure I would know about it. I would let the community know about it. Everything that we're doing right now is as just for an abundance of caution. High visibility, high presence. You see us, but there's also a layer of protection out there not just this precinct, but, borough and citywide that you don't see, that's part of the, Intel Bureau and all that other type of stuff. The first part of your question, I don't have specific closure rates, but I can say that 2022, and also I know the beginning of this year, the 7-0 precinct detective squad had the highest percentage of closure rates in the entire city, to be quite honest with you. So the detective squad upstairs, I'm going to be honest with you, I've worked this is my 13th command in my 20-year career. This is honestly, they're a crew of really, really strong detectives and hungry detectives, and they close a lot of cases that there's times that I don't even think they're going to be able to solve, and somehow they pull it out of their hat and they do a really good job. I could just note just a quick example. I can't say his name because he's a juvenile, but the southern part of this precinct was getting crushed actually with burglaries, some synagogues, personal homes were getting broken into, valuables, and as well as the occupants' cars were being stolen. Very large pattern. They just solved the case yesterday, and with the help of the community, as obviously we put this individual under arrest and closed that case. And there were about 6 or 7 reported incidents in just the last 2 months alone. So that's just a quick example.
Thank you. George Watt's hand was up.
Sorry. Thank you, Hindi. Yeah, I wanted to go back about the post office thing, because the same thing that you said, Bart, with the post office, the one that I use here on Nostrand Avenue and Avenue I, also somebody actually tampered with the boxes in front of that post office the exact same way. Because Inspector Separano worried me so much the last meeting that I went there to the post office. And so it was it was a very, very bad tip you gave us, Inspector.
I'm sorry. So I can just give you some raw data, just for arrests, just overall. It doesn't really. It's like a kind of a general picture of arrests versus complaints. So just for the year, just for the 7 major categories, we have 1,028 7 major crimes reported in the 7-0 precinct. That's murder, rape, felony assault, burglary, grand larceny, and grand larceny auto. So 1,028. And for the year, we have a total of 463 arrests. So that right there shows almost a 50%, arrest to complaint ratio. But like I said, some of those are just summary arrests being made by patrol, and some are by the actual detective squad. So just to answer some of that question.
The district manager's hands is up.
Thank you. Since we're on a data chat, I also wanted to thank you, Inspector. We were just on a meeting just before this together, and the work of the 7-0 precinct also helps the work of the community board when we're trying to get other city agencies to be held accountable. So Inspector Separano showed up at a meeting with Department of Homeless Services. We're trying to turn around some trends at the shelter on Duryea Place, and there's a little bit of this going on. Inspector Separano was able to say, no, these numbers are specific to your address. And so, there was no way for them, there's kind of nowhere for them to go from there other than to hopefully commit to make things better over there. So I just really appreciate that you're there on your job, and then you're there, your job also is supporting so many other things that we're trying to get done in this in the community. So thank you for that. And thanks for just, always being there on such short notice as it was today.
You're welcome anytime. Thank you, Sean.
I don't see any more hands up. I just want to thank you again so much, Inspector Separano, for all that you do. And you really make, you and the 7-0, you really make us feel safe. And we appreciate everything that you do for our community.
You're welcome, and it's my pleasure, and it's our pleasure in the 7-0 precinct. Thank you very much. I just pray for everybody, and we just want to keep everybody safe. And hopefully, as events unfold overseas, things get better for all of us. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Has something before you jump?
Only just to also express my thanks to you on behalf of my community and community board 14, Inspector Separano.
You're welcome, and thank you. I really appreciate you and your support as well. Thank you.
So Andy, do you want me to just move on to the next agenda item?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm Barden Prezant, co-chair with Hindi now of the Community Safety Committee. We have a second agenda item, which is a quick review of our community safety budget requests. I'm thrilled you're still here, Inspector, because this is an opportunity for you to just comment informally on the way we are presenting our requests to the city for issues pertaining to community safety. I know, specifically your NYPD, and a few of these requests are tangential, FTNY, et cetera. But since we don't have reps from those agencies, if you could, shed any light on our requests, how we could fine tune them and develop a better hit rate so that the city will grant us more of our requests, that'd be great. So Joe, you have a question first?
Yes, I'm sorry. It was one thing that I wanted to say from before. I've been hearing over and over and over again from folks actually throughout the country have saw how the 7-0 had handled the Palestinian demonstration by Brooklyn College, and it was just magnificent. It was unbelievably, fabulously professionally handled, and I really wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. Thank you again, Inspector.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
So actually, we only have 6 lines in both capital and expense. The first one is the longest one. If you'll bear with me, I'll try to read through it as quickly as possible. And Inspector, again, anything that you detect that, no pun intended, you feel needs to be adjusted for either next year, or that you feel is so critical needs to be changed now, the odds of which are infinitesimal, just chime in. So our first request in order for community safety is the general term is renovate or upgrade existing precinct houses. You can guess which one that is. And it reads as follows. The history of efforts to relocate this aging facility go back more than 3 decades. In 2006, DCAS began property acquisition at 1326 Ocean Ave. NYPD set aside $30 million for the property. OMB stated its commitment to identify additional funding. I'm a third of the way through. Construction was set to begin in 2013. It did not, and the site was lost to a market rate housing development. $1 million scoping study to assess the feasibility of building a new precinct house on site acknowledges the locational challenges that the current site presents, which I think we've explored plenty. OMB approved a site search to no avail. Relocating the precinct house remains a priority. In the meantime, the current precinct house floods and leaks, does not have adequate lockers, storage, or parking, nor is it handicap accessible. So that last sentence sort of leads into the second capital request. But as you heard that, Inspector, is there anything there that you think we should add, delete, or for now or next year?
Well, generally, the 7-0 precinct 100% needs a new facility. I mean, I welcome anyone who hasn't, who has not walked into 7-0 precinct to take a tour, and that you'll see exactly what I mean. From the conditions of the actual precinct, as well as just the parking situation across the street from us. Every single day, Monday through Friday, it's a complete nightmare. And that's putting it lightly. And it's frustrating for everyone, for the community, as well as for my officers. So this is a very, very, very old building, and I'm all for anything we can do to make the working conditions of my officers better than it is now. But I appreciate that. Thank you.
So you said you've had been in 13 commands in your 20 years?
Yes. And
how would you rank the facility now in which you are versus all the others?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not just saying this. This is definitely, and I've been in some bad, this is definitely the worst facility I've worked in. I'm going to be honest with you. So, and I my own office, my own bathroom, but I really, it's for my officers, to be honest with you. I don't know how they, they come to work every single day. They put up with a lot, just doing their jobs, and, a good, facility, changes outcomes, I feel when they go out on patrol. So 100%, it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Then any comments from board members as to how we could amplify this, change it at all, or looks like everybody's happy with that? Got it. 1 down, 5 to go. These are much shorter. So the second one elaborates on that last sentence from the first one. which is the topic renovate or upgrade existing precinct house. And it reads, while NYPD continues to search for an appropriate location for a new precinct house, the current precinct house floods and leaks, does not have adequate locker storage, parking, nor is it handicap accessible. Work orders should be addressed quickly. The vacant lot on the block should be explored as a potential parking facility for the 7-0. Anything else that you can think of, Inspector, that on the short term would make it more tolerable for everybody working in there?
Well, short term, I mean, the last part of the, of the sentence, the paragraph that you just said, somehow if that parking lot across the street, would be open to my officers, that would alleviate a lot of issues with parking, on this block. Obviously, a new precinct station house could take a long time to build, and we know that, but 100%, if that could be somehow expedited, it would be very, very helpful. Whether we, our officers parking there, or whether, the workers and the residents from across the street parking there, will alleviate the parking situation.
And the main obstacle to that has been?
I'm going to be honest. I mean, I had to sit down with them about 8 to 12 months ago. Right now the parking lot's closed, but it doesn't seem like it's in, I think it needs to, the weeds to be pulled out and concrete, and they expressed their concerns for, regarding like insurance issues. Obviously, one of my officers parked there, gets hurt. So that is a challenge. It needs some type of, upgrade, at least, to make sure it's safe, I guess, for for vehicles and for my officers. But, if you take a look at it, if somebody takes a look at it, you'll see what I mean. It's weeds growing out of it, and, the concrete's all broken up. So.
Seems perplexing. Sean, can you shed some light on that?
No, not really. I mean, the parking lot is private property, and it's their call on whether or not they would want to enter into a lease agreement, and they're not. I think they also want to see the precinct relocated, so that might be part of their incentive. One of the things I sometimes think about, or wish I could do, is try to assess the number of work orders that come out of the precinct. I believe are high compared to other precincts for obvious reasons. It's old and it breaks down. And then when I asked for the work order numbers, I think this year I asked, and the answer is like, whatever the number was last year, it's the same this year, because nothing got fixed. And so I just wonder, when you go at a penny wise pound foolish approach, like how much money has been poured into fixing an almost irreparable building, and if that money were to be moved into capitalizing a new precinct house, that might be a way of arguing a little more sense of urgency from the city, just from a dollar and cents point of view.
Throwing good money after bad.
Well, just to jump on that, I don't know the exact figures, but I know it's pretty large from what I hear. There's a scaffolding in front of the precinct because of the fact a few years ago, some bricks fell, so they put the scaffolding up, and the bricks can't be fixed because it's considered some type of a landmark. So the city doesn't have the money to fix the building, so it's costing the city and the department a lot of money just for the scaffolding alone per month. So that's what I was told from somebody that works in building maintenance in NYPD. So that alone is a lot of money.
Yeah.
Sean, do you have a follow-up? No? Okay. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, besides the inadequacy of the 100-year-old building, the street that it's on has become impossible as well, because there are people from UCP and elderly people. There are buses that come with elevators in the bus that have to lower people from in their wheelchairs, and then there are people with wheelchairs that have to navigate the wheelchairs with their breath from their mouths. It's impossible when the police have to respond to an emergency. They can't get down the street. It's impossible. The whole thing is ridiculous. And as he was saying about the morale of the troops there, they don't. Other places have adequate gyms for the people, adequate locker rooms and showers. That doesn't exist here at all. Yeah, so it's really bad. And my recommendation, although I don't want anybody to get hurt, certainly, but this might be a spot for a tactical nuclear device.
Preferably, Joe, probably when none of us are here.
That's a scary thought in these times. Let's not.
So any other comments from board members on the temporary renovation for the 7.0 until somehow a miracle happens and we find you a new one? That looks like a no. Okay, 2 down, 4 to go. The next is one that I'm not sure everybody understood last time because it comes under the topic add NYPD parking facilities. So it's actually not like you're being able to park across the street, but the explanation is increasingly we are told that large tow vehicles are not available or that there is no space in the lot. This has created a backlog and long waits for the removal of illegally parked vehicles and an ongoing issue with overnight commercial parking of tractor trailers, both commercial or residential streets. An increased investment in both tow equipment and tow lots is needed. And this is something that you've noticed, Inspector, as well?
Yeah, we don't stop, we don't not tow for that reason, but it's a huge challenge for vehicles that we seize, due to arrests, as well as, towing vehicles that are illegally parked. There's no way for it, they're parked. The only place we park is on the block of the precinct. Well, we have a garage that could fit maybe 1 or 2 cars, but it's a huge challenge. Certain precincts have designated lots just for towed vehicles, vouchered vehicles and inventory vehicles. So this precinct is obviously built in an era, probably when there was horses around and not cars. So that would to answer your question.
And if I could just jump in to add clarity, that was a request that came out of the budget consultations with NYPD, the commissioner's budget director. So it didn't come from the precinct itself, but it was something that was noted at the budget consultation with all 18 boards. And I know in Queens, there was some seasonal use of the racetrack casino aqueduct. And so we were kind of pushing for some time to maybe use Floyd Bennett. But I guess it was hard to engage with the National Park Service. But there have been efforts to locate even temporary spaces. But the PD did ask for an additional tow pound in the Dear Santa letter.
And that was great that you noted, Inspector, that you're not towing because you guys aren't saying we got no place to put this one. Just let it sit there. Now, I'm glad to know that you tow it and then you find something. I don't want to know always what happens to them, but yeah, that's really cool to know that you're just not being deterred from performing the service because you don't have a place to put it necessarily immediately. Sean?
Yeah, thank you. The other thing is that I understand that there is a sort of shift in terms of allowing DSNY to tow more vehicles. There used to be a really strict line if it was considered a luxury vehicle. And I think that there's a shift in that. I don't know if the inspector knows anything about that or if that started yet. But that would relieve some of the burden.
Yeah, I don't know the exact guidelines, but yeah, I do know that the sanitation has been towing more vehicles than in the past. The guidelines have stepped up a little bit, but I have to really look into the exact criteria for that.
Right. I will too. We'll compare notes. Thanks.
Cool.
Great. Just a couple more to go. The next one's actually FDNY. I'll just read it mainly for the other board members, but if you, Inspector, have any light you can shed on it, that would be great. It is to fund station house renovations and upgrades at Engine 255 Ladder 157, Engine 281 Ladder 147, and Engine 250 firehouses, including the addition of a station house generator at one of these fire stations. There are no firehouses in CD14 with a generator. Sean, does that put us like at the absolute bottom of the pile that we have not even one with a generator?
No, I don't think so. And firehouses aren't as districted as a police precinct is. But we are not in a floodplain, so it always seemed weird to me that we didn't have generators. But no, we're not in the bottom. There are other districts that don't have as well.
Sort of misery loves company. Great.
I mean, FDNY does have more of a sort of an objective standard by which they determine which firehouses are getting the next upgrade.
I recall in their response, this is just off the top of my head, that basically they are installing new generators and they have an algorithm whereby they decide where they're going to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments from board members? And we just have two last ones. So that takes care of all of our capital. We only have two in expense. And the first one is funding additional crossing guards, ever increasing request. New schools have opened, new developments are in the pipeline. The CB defers to the police precinct to assign additional crossing guards to new locations. Funding should also cover substitute crossing guards so that intersections are not without this important safety measure when a crossing guard is out for any period of time. Inspector, any particular locations that you feel are woefully neglected because we just don't have the funding?
I can't really think of any that's like woefully, but honestly, school crossing guards, they have my respect, but they can always use more backup. And honestly, I've gotten numerous requests, for locations, in my year and a half here, and as well as my last precinct, can't have enough school crossing guards. And to be honest with you, they probably could use a little bit of a pay raise too, just for the job that they do. I'm going to be honest, it would make the job a little bit more attractive.
Appealing,
yeah, appealing. So, but nothing really specific. The locations that I feel it should be covered are being covered, but substitute ones, would definitely help.
Thank you. Comments, board members? Then we're going to the last one, which is funding new adequate firefighter, marshal, EMS, and inspector hires. Given the pace of development and the density that is added to our community, it is imperative we ensure that staffing remain optimal and that the addition of a fifth firefighter, I guess, it says firefight on this version that I got here, on the truck is expanded to firehouses serving our community. The number of firefighters fully trained for all inspections should be at 100%. I don't know how that could be improved upon, but it seems straightforward unless anybody else has any suggestions, and it's out of your bailiwick, inspector, so I'm not going to put your feet to the fire on. Oh, geez, sorry. So any other comments on that? If not, we'll call it a close on this agenda item and move to the last one. Glenn?
Thank you. It is not about this particular item, but if it's okay, I do have a question for the inspector about traffic and electric vehicles.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Well, Inspector, I'm just wondering, I drive around, I walk around, I bike around, and there are an enormous amount of people on various types of electric vehicles that don't pay any attention to the rules of the road and can come at you from any direction. And I'm wondering if the 7.0 is doing anything to try and deal with that type of a problem.
Yeah, so you mean like you talk about like two-wheelers, right? You talk about like electric bikes, and you talk about like dirt bike, like stuff like that.
Yes, Inspector.
We've seen a huge increase in electric bikes and gas-powered bikes in the 7.0 in the borough and also citywide. My traffic team, we conducted an enormous amount of enforcement for these bikes. And we also, locations that we know, take collisions, we conduct enforcement on vehicles as well. One of the challenges for conducting enforcement on these type of electric bikes are weighing whether or not it's worth it to chase them, putting them at risk as well as the community. So, my officers might put the lights on to try to stop one of these bikes, and they just take off on them, and they drive extremely recklessly. And if it's, during school dismissal or during rush hour, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't feel comfortable with my officers doing a high-speed chase with these individuals. I don't think it's worth killing this individual or God forbid running over, a child. So, we conducted an enormous amount of enforcement on these bikes. We confiscate a lot of these bikes. There are separate rules, electric versus gas. The electric bikes, from my understanding, do not need to be registered. The gas-powered ones do, but we do enforcement on both, based on the rules and the regulations. Unfortunately, there are a lot more of them on the streets now. There's a lot more, food delivery companies, stuff like that. So, we see an increase of them, on the bike, on the streets riding recklessly. And unfortunately, we see an increase of those type of bikes being stolen as well, out of garages and just in front of people's houses and buildings and stuff like that. So it is a huge problem. We try our best to conduct enforcement on it, but if there's any specific areas that you see an increase, like a specific intersection or anything, I can have my traffic team focus on it, to try our best to enforce it.
Glenn, do you have a follow-up question?
No, I think that's it. Thank you, Inspector.
Cool.
Nina, I believe you had your hand up next.
Yes, in reference to the issue that Glenn brought up. So if you go to, and New York State DOT has a very clear delineation of what is or isn't. The things that the delivery guys that look like bicycles, but they can be pedaled and are legal. The bigger issue is these things that look like motorcycles. Sometimes they're smaller, they're more like Vespa-like. Some of them are full-on motorcycle size, and they're in the bike lanes. And and it's like terrifying if you're actually on a bicycle. And these guys, it's like they're all over the place, going the wrong way in bike lanes, coming up behind you and forcing you over. All of these things. It seems to me, I don't know, maybe I don't know. I totally hear what you're saying about chasing them and resources and everything, but when they start going into Prospect Park and stuff, it becomes a real problem, and people have gotten hit and seriously injured. So I know the Prospect Park kind of goes out of your jurisdiction, but Ocean Parkway bike lane and the pedestrian walkways are areas, maybe sting operations. I don't know. That's just a thought.
No, 100%. Listen, I'm not going to deny it's a major problem. We see it citywide, but specifically here, our enforcement for these bikes are up. About 30%, I believe, 28 to 30% for electric bikes and dirt bikes. Citywide, the Chief of Patrol's office from last year even into now, the bikes that look like the ones you're talking about, they're probably like dirt bikes kind of things. Citywide, there's a huge effort every single weekend where there's a whole team of officers just confiscating these bikes, in every single borough of the city. And I do see those bikes where you're saying on the bike lane, on the bike lanes on Ocean Parkway, and to that effect. And like I said, we conduct enforcement to the best of our ability. You cannot be in every single part of the precinct, but our traffic officers, they get a list of tasks to do every day, and that's on the top of their list. So.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do I recall that the city council has been bringing out some new legislation recently pertaining to the electric bikes? Sean, does that ring a bell? No? Okay. I thought I heard that on the radio this morning, especially in light of the recent fire, but that again might be more an FDNY issue.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know everything. I just act like I do, but I don't know that one.
I'm very disappointed. Anyway, Florencia, I believe you're next, and I don't believe you. Florencia, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Inspector Saporano. I want to thank you that,
Sorry, I can't hear you.
I'm losing you a little bit there, Florencia.
Can you hear me more clearly now?
Yes, that's definitely better. Thanks.
So I was saying thank you for moving the vehicles and not just, sitting on your hands because there's no space. And also in regards to what Nina was talking about with these bikes, on Friday, there were, I think 3 or 4 of them. There was one on a dirt bike on Coney Island Avenue, weaving in and out of traffic, tilting the vehicle, the bike so that they were, like the back wheel, the front wheel is up in the air, and just putting motorists and pedestrian in danger. And with the electric bikes, the ones, especially the ones that are very silent, like I've been walking and almost been hit a few times because they say nothing, they do not blow their horns, and you don't even hear them coming. So something needs to be done.
Thank you, Florencia. I see exactly what you see. In regards to Coney Island Avenue, that is a location where we do see like the dirt bikes driving recklessly. And I can tell you firsthand, I've been in a vehicle. I don't want to use the word chase, but following a couple of these dirt bikes, and they drive to the degree where if I don't stop, they are going to kill themselves or somebody else. So, but that's not to say that we're not strategically stopping them at gas stations and try to stop them when they're at a red light and jumping out as fast as we can. We've arrested some of them for reckless endangerment, reckless driving, confiscated their bikes. But it has to be really tactical, and we have to be very careful when we try to stop those type of bikes, those dirt bikes.
Florencia, anything to add, or then we'll go to Joe.
Oh,
Joe,
thank you. Thank you. No, that's it for now. Thank
okay.
you.
Thanks, Florencia.
I just wanted to say that going down Bedford Avenue today, there was a guy on a scooter. He was keeping up with my car at 25 miles an hour. It's just unbelievably ridiculous.
Then, if there are no further questions, that basically takes care of our second agenda item.
Does Glenn have a question? His hand is up.
Yeah, I see Glenn's hand
Oh,
up.
geez, I'm sorry. I can't even see it. It's the same color as your wall there. So sorry, Glenn, go ahead.
Thank you. It seems to me something needs to be done. I mean, when you're driving, you can't even make a right turn without checking your mirror to make sure no one on their bike is going to come scooting in and you're going to run them over. I just remember thinking back, there was a time when there were police on bicycles. And although I don't know that that's the solution, it looks like there needs to be something different, because I hear you, Inspector. There's not a lot that you can do under the present circumstances, but maybe there needs to be some type of group established with the police department that can address this issue. So that's it. That's my final comment. Thank you very much.
I think that's actually a very good point. It's a new development and it's gone rampant, and maybe thinking out of the box like that, some specific motorcycle, NYPD task force that deploys to known strips like CIA. So I think it's an interesting idea. Carl, your hand's gone up in the interim?
Yes. This just occurred to me while we're having this conversation. Like I'm spitballing, I'm spitballing off the dome right now, but I'm just wondering, the same way people ideally take driver's ed when they have a car, the same way if you learn how to ride a bike, from your friends and family, you do that. And if you have a motorcycle license, ideally you're supposed to take that. I'm just wondering if there's some sort of solution where it's just, I don't know if there needs to be like a guide on how to ride your e-bike or scooter or whatever, but just something, right? Just because I'm not, the inspector. And so I don't know what the challenge is of having to figure out where to best put his team to solve things, right? But I'm just wondering if some combination of that plus his, where his team can be deployed, if that's some sort of solution, just because there's some percentage of people who aren't reckless, but but I'm with you. Every day I definitely look 3 times across the street, because if it's not going to be the bus or the dollar van or the car, it's the scooter that gets me, right? And so I do look now to make sure the scooter isn't the thing that gets me, So that was just my 3 cents. That's it.
Well, just to answer to that, I'm sorry. Times have changed, obviously, over the last 5 to 10 years. There used to be these motorcycles that people have a motorcycle license. These e-bikes, you apparently don't need any type of license to get on it. So 100%, I'm all for, and I'm sure the community is as well, you needing an actual license, because these things, just as, I've been hearing Joe Dweck say, and a few other people say, they're driving just as fast as vehicles. So I believe there should be an actual license to be able to drive these things. I think that would help dramatically, at least people getting on these things, and also giving us a little bit more ammunition to address it also and enforce it.
Mm-hmm.
I see 3 new hands up. If they're all going to be on this one issue, I'm actually going to recommend that we move on to the 3rd agenda item, in which I will suggest that we add a specific agenda item later in the year on this issue, because I can see everybody's brainstorming it. It seems totally worthwhile. There's no obvious solution. So maybe, set aside some time at a future meeting just to focus on this one particular issue. So in the interim, I saw Svi, your hand went up, and then Hindi, yours.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I'm off mute.
No,
Very
go
good.
ahead, Svi. You're on.
Okay, good. I wanted to suggest that to the inspector, if, you know, what they call those ticket cops that have those radar guns and stuff like that, if they're situated in various different parts where these bikes are found quite a bit, if there's some type of camera that goes along with it that would be able to picture them and then later identify them and give them the proper summonses and take their bikes.
Good idea. Inspector, what do you think?
I'm sorry, you mean like, are you talking about like the highway cops that have to stand there with the radar guns? You mean like take a picture of them, you mean? Is that your question? Or?
Yeah, I mean, something of that type of nature where you'd be able to, you know, get them back after they're doing something that is totally illegal and extremely dangerous. And by the way, even if you don't hit them, but they end up hitting you, insurance-wise, the one who's to blame is the one in the vehicle that's enclosed.
Yeah. So listen, that's a great idea, but just to put something, you know, a couple things in perspective regarding that. So we have a whole facial recognition unit in the police department for like actual crimes that, you know, say someone commits a robbery or a burglary, we don't know who it is, and the individual gets caught, you know, with their face. It gets submitted, and it can only be compared to whether or not that individual is known to the NYPD, such as, you know, being arrested. So even if we had a plan like that, and they take a picture of someone's face, you know, if the person has not been arrested before, we're not going to be able to identify who that person is. So maybe that in conjunction with having, you know, make it, you know, using a motorcycle license for these things where their face is actually in the DMV, you know, yeah, maybe coupled with that, it would help. But without an actual driver's license, that's going to be very, very difficult to identify people, even with a clear face shot, unless they have an arrest record.
Right, and the chances of that, I think, would probably be on the better side, that they probably do have it if this is the way they're driving and whatnot, number one. But number two, I don't think the whole thing belongs on the police department. I think city council and other agencies of that nature should be banning those type of items in the city, you know, proper, just like they ban other items. But from a police point of view, that may have some assistance to be able to curtail some of these things that are going on, because it's outrageous that we have to watch, not just crossing a street, but even getting into your car and you open your door and etc., things of that nature. But thank you for your response.
Thanks, V. Indy, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I agree with what everyone is saying. And the same way that we have tight gun laws, I was thinking that maybe when you buy one of these electric vehicles, maybe there has to be laws in order to get that. Maybe you have to sign something that you'll drive safely. There's some kind of standard, like you have to take some kind of I mean, I love that you said that you need licenses for that. Is that could that actually happen? Is that in fruition? But maybe put some of the onus on people selling these vehicles as well. So like, you know, you have to sign some kind of waiver. You have to be a certain age. You have to there has to be standard.
I agree 100%.
And do you have a follow-up, or shall I move on to close this out?
You can move on to close.
William, I believe you'll be the last one speaking on this. Fire away. You there, William? Okay, got it. He had posted something in the chat about the dollar vans, but I think we're just going to include that in our third last agenda item, which is future potential agenda items. So I'd spoken with a number of you, with representative of various agencies, Sean, about some issues that we might want to treat over the course of the coming year. And I just wanted to run them by you all, to just sort of put in the back of your minds. And
did you want the inspector to stay for this part?
If you want, because one of them is the cure violence groups, that I think you and I have been discussing. So if, as I go through any of the agenda items, Inspector, you feel you want to chime in on them in particular, because again, I'm new to this committee and a lot of the topics are not ones that I've delved into before. So I'm going to defer to so many of you who have this institutional knowledge as to whether or not I'm barking up the right or wrong trees on them. So the first one is a joint meeting with the Transportation Committee on traffic enforcement. You know, I'm listening to all of you go through this, and I'm looking at my list going, well, maybe I did find at least a couple of good topics. Because I spoke with the Transportation Committee chairs, and when I was chair of transportation, it was just frustrating the DOT, whenever you point out like how terrible things are on CIA or Flatbush or Church, they put the burden onto the 7-0. They say it's all enforcement. We did everything perfectly. It's all the problem of enforcement. And yet when we talk to the NYPD, they say the DOT has set up situations that naturally lead to these disasters. Double parking all along Flatbush. And so I would just love to try to get the two committees in the room with representatives from the two agencies to discuss some of the main problem areas that we've had in the neighborhood. So that's one. Second, it would be great to get them the PBA so that they could brief us on how we can offer more support to NYPD, individual officers, families, just to broaden our knowledge of ways in which we can support the NYPD. Third, again, pertinent to the e-bikes, but the separate side, which is the FDNY. And I know I've heard various discussions of what types are illegal, what is regulated, what is legal, where are they being stored, who's bringing them in, who's using them, who should be responsible. I think FDNY discussing that with us would be worthwhile. And while on the topic of electric batteries, I mean, if we wanted to make it a sort of a broader subject, I know that when we were discussing the city of Yes, there are great concerns over people putting, huge batteries, chargers on their houses, and whether or not FDNY would be capable of regulating those. Just 3 to go. One is invite the CCRB to come and brief us on their activities, how they work with NYPD. Second, again, is the Cure Violence groups, which didn't we have one who came to the last full board meeting? I can't remember the name, Mud or something. I can't.
We've had Drum present both to the Public Safety Committee and to Community Safety Committee and to the Youth Committee. They've also were part of our last two youth conferences, and you might recall that we actually gave Al Matthew one of the awards at the reception last year.
Maybe you mentioned that.
But funding the Cure Violence groups was like one of the #1 requests as far as the percentage of people who did our community survey. That was, I think, one of the tallest lines on the bar graph.
That's great.
Two of them in the community, like Drum works with the 7-0, and then there's another one called Elite Learners.
Thank you. That was the name I was searching for. Inspector, you're comfortable with the work that they do and feel that I just lost you for a sec. And you feel that they add and, are assisting in the reduction of the crime levels in the neighborhood?
I'm sorry. I heard you for like the first half of your question. I'm sorry. Can you start that one more time?
No problem. It's simply, we're discussing that we'd like to encourage, the Cure Violence groups to come and speak with us about the work that they do. But I wanted, to be sure that you're comfortable with the whole mechanism, or if there's some that you feel maybe are more beneficial or less beneficial, your input on that would be great.
The Cure Violence groups, I can tell you firsthand, especially over the summer, Labor Day weekend, the one that's funded by the mayor's office, Drum covers the 7-0 precinct. They were amazing last year and this year, definitely stopping potential retaliation shootings that's going on in some of our gang areas. I have a good relationship with Al. Specifically this year alone, there was a very large Caribbean, actually Haitian march from Flatbush Avenue all the way to Prospect Park and vice versa, where we were marching with this group, for a couple hours, and there were a couple, really heated fights, or words and almost potential violence inside this group. And Al and his people, Drum, they were marching with us, and I literally saw with my own eyes prevented numerous fights just that night alone. We take gang violence in certain areas of the precinct, and and there's vigils in regards, and I'll reach out to reach out to them and say, could you guys, can you men and women be there to make sure they we know tensions are high, and they 100% prevented a lot of violence in the time I've been here. So I'm a very, very big proponent of the violence interrupted in the 7-0 precinct. It's interfaith clergy as well. They're out there helping us as well. They respond to they do outreaches at shooting locations that we have. At troubled locations where gang violence and drug violence and stuff like that. So I'm a huge proponent for anything. We cannot enforce, the NYPD cannot enforce our way out of every single problem, and that's just a clear example of what that means.
Great to hear. Thank you. Florencia, I believe you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. I just wanted to say that Drum has been very effective. I've seen them stop, as Inspector Soprano has said. I've been out there with them when they're doing their events or marches or canvassing areas, and they've joined with us to, when there have been shooting incidents, and they've been real pacifiers. So yes, I can attest to that. Al Matthew and his group they're very diligent. And when the students a student was shot, was it from Midward, Inspector Separano? I did a week with the 7-0 Interfaith Clergy Council, and Drum was out there giving out flyers, talking to the students, and they work very hard. And yes, they work.
Yes, that was a 16-year-old student who was unfortunately shot by a stray bullet, due to gang violence. And yes, they helped out dramatically after that scene, as did you, Florencia. Thank you. So I'm, just to echo what I said, I'm a huge proponent of these violence interrupted groups.
Thank you. William, is your hand up new, or is this from the last time? I'm gonna guess it was from the last time. Then I just have two other suggestions for possible, well, just one for a possible future agenda item, which is the cannabis dispensary enforcement issue is one that we've been beating the drum on very recently, but I think maybe in 6 months, towards the end of the season, maybe just try to get an update and see if that's progressed at all, because we pointed out what we thought were so many inefficiencies and cross-purpose activities. Hopefully, in 6 or 8 months, they'll be able to come to us with a report saying they've improved things. And I spoke with Nancy Lulu at the DA's office, and I asked her if, the district attorney has any particular issues they'd like us to address. So maybe we'll hear from her at some point. So my point is to all of you on the board, and actually to you, Inspector, as well, if any of you come up with issues that you feel that we could address, profitably in our future meetings, just email them to Sean at the board office, and we'll bring them out and we'll consider them. And that is the end of our last agenda item. So is there any new business? Hindi, anything you'd like to add?
Not right now. I was just talking to Joanne today, and we were thinking because of everything that's going on in the Middle East, maybe we would at some point schedule some kind of forum, for everyone to discuss, their views, and try to discuss it peacefully, and try to bring awareness to all the different sides so that we can, as a community.
That sounds great. Then if there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn from somebody.
Motion, Gail Smith.
Thank you, Gail. I don't think we need a second necessarily, or I'll second it or something or whatever. And I'll basically say we're done. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you all.
everybody.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Great
Thank you very
meeting.
much, folks.
Everybody, thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Good night,
Thanks
everyone.
again, Inspector, for coming.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.